Hundreds of people out on the streets of Antananarivo, Madagascar's capital, prompted this police response. Rubber bullets and tear gas, and then a curfew to disperse the crowds. It's anger over water shortages and power cuts. The perception that the government and authorities are failing to manage basic resources that's behind this unrest.
Give the people water, give the people electricity. The people are suffering too much. You in high places take advantage of your power.
There's been no response from the government about the protests. This street protest appears to be the embodiment of a movement driven mainly by young people, which has been growing on social media. This Instagram account, Gen Z Madagascar, created less than 2 weeks ago, already has 20,000 followers. The logo being used, a pirate image drawn from Japanese anime, is becoming increasingly familiar across the world, including in recent protests in Nepal, France, the Philippines and Peru, a symbol of youth-led defiance and anger at corruption. Here in Madagascar, where 3/4 of the people live in poverty, it's aimed at the cost of living and failing institutions too.
The students can't really study anymore. We're fed up. The university is getting destroyed. The young Malagasy are getting destroyed.
Many in Madagascar blame President Andry Rajoelina, re-elected 2 years ago, for the harsh conditions. Just a few hours before the protests broke out, he was in New York addressing the UN General Assembly.
Guaranteeing a better future for our families and our youth. We want fair trade, we want equitable partnerships, and we want shared prosperity.
Back home, protesters have attacked houses belonging to 3 politicians known to be close to the president. They've also barricaded roads with rocks and burning tyres, and police say there's been looting of shops in some areas. Their response, a nighttime curfew until, they say, public order is restored. While discontent on the streets may have been quashed for now, online it's gaining traction. Well, I'm joined now by Paul Melly. He's an Africa expert at the think tank Chatham House. Paul, how long has this protest been brewing?
Well, it's been building up for quite a few days because there's huge resentment in Madagascar over the constant cuts in electricity supply, power cuts, and the sort of chaotic state of Jirama, which is the power and water company, and is really the sort of a source of grievance for Malagasy for years. But in today's climate, with protests so easily spread by social media, these things are really accelerating. So this has been triggered by more crisis of announcement of more power cuts, and Jirama had said a few weeks ago that things were only going to get worse for quite a long time, and that seems to have really sent resentment boiling over.
And it does seem to have been driven largely by young people on social media. Is this a sort of general distrust of institutions that's playing out here?
Yes, I mean, it's a distrust we're seeing right across the African continent, but actually from further afield, with the influence of the social media campaigns of young people in Asia as well, in countries such as Nepal. So what people are able to do now is spread messages, of course, and organize very quickly, and that can mobilize people in a way that just wasn't possible, say 10, 15 years ago. And there's huge frustration in so many African countries, and Madagascar is not an exception to this. Among young people, frustration with the political class, the traditional political elite, the traditional leadership, who are often perceived as complacent and out of touch. And in Madagascar, there's a small governing elite which tends to dominate politics and the sort of power structures, and people feel that doesn't really relate to everyday lives because levels of poverty in Madagascar are really very deep.
How do you think this will all play out?
Well, it's hard to say because there's been periodically waves of protest and strikes and moments of tension in Madagascar, but the country has quite a long history of electoral politics, albeit sometimes with some abuses, some sort of manipulation at the fringes. But every so often things have really boiled over. Some years ago, a previous president who was very heavily involved in business, suddenly all his business premises in the capital city, Antananarivo, were attacked by rioters. Premises were burnt down in a great sort of upsurge in boiling popular anger. And one could see this again because the current president, André Razoel, has talked a big game about developing the economy, modernizing things. He was at the UN this week and was even talking about moving most electricity production to environmental green electricity, if you like. But for the everyday lives of ordinary people in Antananarivo and other cities around Madagascar, what really matters is the price of electricity, the price of water, and simply, will the power be on at all?
There's been quite a crackdown in this case, hasn't there, on these protests today?
Yes, there's been a crackdown, not just on the protests, but also a sense that little by little, although Madagascar has this relatively long history of democratic government, that political space is being shrunk and squeezed. The reality of proper choice is being sort of edged out. So, for example, some time ago, the government overhauled the Senate. So, from being a sort of wide ranging body that had quite a broad spread of political opinion in it, it ended up as a very small body with just a mostly government, pro-government figures in it. That sense that real choice is being edged out. And then there's been speculation just in recent weeks that the current president, as well, might try to go for a third term. That would be hugely contentious. And as we've seen in many mainland African countries, it causes a lot of anger when the constitution gets changed, term limits are scrapped, and somebody tries to stay on in power and use, as it were, their domination of the political institutions to then ensure that they win an election that many people feel they shouldn't be able to stand in. So that could trigger a further wave of protest down the line, even if the government rides out the current unrest.
Well, we'll be watching. Well, Paul Melly from the Chatham House think tank, thank you very much indeed.